Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. My name is Angela and welcome to A Little Life of Books. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of July. Now I managed to read 10 books, which is by far the most amount of books I've ever been able to read in any month, and so I'm very proud of myself. An awful lot to get through, so I'm just going to get right into it. But first of all, don't forget to like and subscribe. The first book I finished was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. Mackesy maybe? Not entirely sure how you pronounce his surname. However, this book was absolutely phenomenal. It's the story of a boy and he meets a mole, a fox and a horse, and it's about friendship and kindness and just all of the good things. There are also beautiful illustrations throughout. The author has a Twitter where he also posts pictures, so you can see his illustrations there as well. This book is just, I'm not entirely sure how to describe it, it's just so good. I would highly recommend everybody reads it. I give it 5 stars and I am a primary school teacher, and this book will be one that I will go over with my pupils when we get back to school, because it's just such positive messages and just about friendship and surrounding yourself with the right kind of people and having a positive attitude. I think that's what they're going to need when they get back to school next week. The second book I finished was Bunny by Mona Awad. Now this is a horror book and it is one of the most bizarre books I have ever read in my life. It tells a story of Samantha, who is in an MFA program in America, and in her group there is only her plus these 4 other girls, and they are all sort of best friends and they all call each other Bunny, hence the name of the book. And Samantha gets an invitation to join them at an event at their house, and she goes along and it all gets very, very bizarre from there. I still have no idea what parts in this book were real and which parts were not. I still could not really tell you. I can't give you an accurate synopsis for this. And when I finished, I considered giving it 5 stars, and then I thought, calm down, you didn't get that 5-star feeling, so I gave it 4 stars. Upon reflection, it's now been quite a few weeks since I've read this, because it was read at right at the start of July, I'm thinking it might be a 3-star. I don't know, it was really good at the time, but thinking back I'm like, do I think it's good enough to be a 4-star? I'm not entirely sure. But either way, I would recommend it, but just so you know, it is incredibly weird. The next book I read through audiobook, and it was Spring at Blueberry Bay, which is the Hope Island book 1 by Holly Martin. This book tells a story of a girl whose name I've forgotten already. It was a 1-star book. I can't really remember very much from it. There's a girl and she is sort of down on her luck a bit, and she's applied for a job to work at a charity which helps homeless people. A homeless person then sort of arrives on her doorstep and she lets him in, and it's all about the story of their connection and her going for this job interview a couple of days later. It's just like a romance, and I just didn't find anything memorable about it at all. As I said, I can't even remember the names of the main character, not the main female character nor the main male character, and I'm lucky I can remember that it's Hope Island, to be honest, that they were on. It was just really forgettable. It was the kind of book that you could have on in the background, so I guess it was good for that, but not entirely what I was looking for, and so unfortunately it's a 1-star from me. The fourth book I read this month was The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Now, I did a reading vlog for this, which I will link below. This is not the copy I read in the reading vlog. I ordered a new box set. So we have The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and this all in a box set, and nicer copies that are a bit bigger and therefore just physically nicer to hold and nicer to read from. Anyway, it's not important. This is the conclusion of The Lord of the Rings. This book I loved. I enjoyed them all. Not my favourite of the 3. My favourite was The Two Towers. I gave this one 4 stars. I gave Fellowship of the Ring 4 stars as well, but I gave The Two Towers 5 stars. I will link my reading vlog down below so that you can see my whole thoughts on this one. The next book I read was also an audiobook, and that was The Green Mile by Stephen King. Oh my goodness, where to start with The Green Mile? I loved it. Absolutely 5-star book. I am so into Stephen King just now, as you will see a little later as in the next book. This is the story of Death Row, where they call the Green Mile, and it's the prisoners they get in there before they're sentenced to death, and you follow both the prison officers and the prisoners themselves, and it's primarily the story of John Coffey, who is a massive man. I think, did he say he was 6'7" or something like that? He is huge, but he is an incredibly tender person, and it's about the crime he committed and his experience there, and we're primarily following the main prison guard, well, his life focusing on that section, so what he felt happens, and then you get to see him in present day as well, and it was just phenomenal. There's an excellent film adaptation which I would highly recommend. I watched that years and years ago and have watched it many times, and I've only just got around to reading the book, and I loved it. Would highly recommend. So we then got on to the week of the Reading Rash, so I will link my wrap up down below as well. Lots of links going on here apparently. But the first one I read was Misery, and I read this one primarily through audiobook as well, and this one was also a 5 stars. This tells the story of an author, Paul Sheldon, who gets into an car accident and is rescued by Annie, who is his #1 fan. Anyways, Annie is not very happy with him, and she makes him write a book whilst she is nursing him back to health. Now obviously it's not as straightforward as that. It is a Stephen King novel. If you don't know what happens, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's absolutely phenomenal. As I said in that wrap up, the first half the film follows very well, but then it gets a little bit different. Some characters are merged in the film, and some punishments are changed slightly. But this one would highly recommend you read the book, because you really get into Paul Sheldon's head. You really get to hear about his thoughts, and you hear the conversations he's verbally having with Annie, but also what he's wanting to say in his head, and it's phenomenal. The next one I read for the Reading Rash was A Wizard's Tears by Craig Gilbert. Now this is the story of Lorcaine, who is an evil sorcerer who has been banished from his world, and has to go to Elroen, which is the world where our other 2 characters are set, Vergale, who is this woman here I believe, and Kelderan, and they all meet and there's a big battle, and that's about it. I did not enjoy this one really sort of at all. It is a self-published book, and my mum knows the author, which is why I have it, and I would give the author another chance, but I would want to read a book published more recently, because this I felt had some serious pacing issues, and that most of this book was a battle, and I felt like there wasn't enough character development, that I did not care about the characters really, and so I just felt there was no stakes. I was like, do I care if this person lives or dies? Not really, therefore I wasn't really invested. If it wasn't the fact that I was reading this for the Reading Rush, I probably would have DNF'd it, if I'm being honest. But I gave it 2 stars because I do think the book had a good premise, it just the execution wasn't great. The next book I read, which was my 8th of the month and my 3rd for the Reading Rush, was Grimm's Fairy Tales, and my goodness I hate this book. Absolutely hated it. I'm really struggling to think of anything I did like about it. No, I just can't think of anything. I felt that a lot of the tales were very, very repetitive, and that I genuinely felt like I had already read this and I'd made a mistake and was reading it again, but I wasn't. The level of misogyny and racism in this was unbelievable, and I thought that fairy tales had to have a sort of a moral to the story. However, no. It basically, if you are pretty, everything works out well for you, and if you're not conventionally pretty, then you're a horrible person and don't deserve anything. I mean, if this book was not a gift, this copy was not a gift from my mum, I would just get rid of it. However, as a gift, so I'm going to keep it. But oh my goodness, hated it, would not recommend at all. So we move from Grimm's Fairy Tales, which was 1 star, to The Silent Wife by Karen Slaughter, which turned out to be a 4 star, but was so close to being a 5 star. I love Karen Slaughter. love her. She is an auto-buy for me. I've read all of her books, not all of her novellas, but I've read all of her books, and this, The Silent Wife, is the 10th book in the Will Trent series. Now you cannot go into this unless you have read all of the books in the Will Trent series and you have read the Grant County series, because there are massive spoilers for both in this book. This one, so we're following the characters from the Will Trent series, however they are looking, a case that they have is related to a case that was looked at in the Grant County series by Jeffrey and his team, Lena, etc. And so there's a dual timeline of now, when Will Trent is looking at the case, and back in the day when Jeffrey was looking at a related case. And I just thought it was so good. I love Karen Slaughter. She just develops characters so well, and I'm so invested in all of the relationships in this. And the only reason it did not get a 5-star was because I guessed who the perpetrator was fairly early on, to be honest. If it wasn't for that, I would have gotten 5 stars. I can't really tell you much of the plot of this because it does ruin, because it's the 10th in a series, so sorry about that, but I would recommend starting off right at the start, reading all of her books, because I love her. 4 stars for this one. The final book I finished this month was Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. Now I read this because of Noelle from Noelle Gallagher. Is that the name of her channel? I think so. This is her favourite book and she talks about it all the time, and she was so enthusiastic about it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna read that. I'll give that one a go. So I ordered it. It's one of those American copies that is just like too floppy for my liking. Like, it's just no thank you. But anyways, aside from that, the story is about, there's a boy called Elio, and he lives in Italy with his family, and every summer they get somebody to come and stay at their house who is, say, writing a book. He comes from quite an academic family, and the person that comes is called Oliver, so Elio's 17, I think Oliver's 24-year-old American, and he's come to write his book for the summer. And Elio sort of falls in love or is infatuated by or with Oliver, and it is the story of a summer romance effectively, but we are very much in Elio's head, and we are seeing his sort of obsession and fascination and infatuation with Oliver, and his, does he like me back, does he not, oh, I really don't know about this. But it is told so beautifully. I would call this probably like a literary romance. I'm just not sure how to rate this, because I feel like it should be a 5-star book, but it took me quite a while to read. Now that could be because I had to stop for the reading rush, or it could be because I wasn't that into it. I'm just not sure. I think before I give this a rating, I think I'm going to need to read it again. I would recommend it, I just don't quite have my thoughts together about it yet. I only finished it a few days ago and it's not quite like fully sunk into my brain yet, so I'll need to wait to see how I rate this. But I would recommend, and I would want to read more from Andre Aciman. I think he's got one called 8 White Nights, which is, I think, a love story told over 8 nights, like 8 evenings. So I would be interested in reading that, but if you have any other recommendations from Andre Aciman, then please let me know. So those are the 10 books that I finished. There is one book that I started and have not yet finished, and that is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. That one I will be putting on the back burner for the next week because of the book Hibernation. I'm taking part in that, and so that doesn't fit any of the prompts, and so I will not be continuing with Anna Karenina, so that'll need to wait. However, I'm really enjoying that so far. I'm roughly a third of the way through. I know it's like a Russian classic, but it is actually really quite accessible, a lot more accessible than I thought it was going to be, so I am enjoying that so far. But it's about 800 or 900 pages or something. I'm only a third of the way through, so that will hopefully be in my wrap up for next month. So those are the 10 books I finished, and the one book I have not yet finished in July. As I said, it was a really good reading month for me. Let me know how you got on reading this month, if you took part in any reading challenges, if you're going to be taking part in any reading challenges in August, because I'm planning on doing the book Hibernation and then possibly Summerween as well at the end. Remember to like this video and subscribe if you would like to see more content. Until then, I hope you have a great day.